get started. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. This is our 4th virtual community workshop in support of OC on the Move, which is an active transportation plan for the unincorporated communities and flood control channels that Orange County Public Works oversees. My name is Tim Bevins. I'm an urban planner for Alta Planning and Design. We're a firm that specializes in active transportation, which we'll get into in a moment. But of course, we're here to support Orange County Public Works, and Ariana Lopez is here with us. She is the active transportation coordinator for the county's Public Works Department, and I want to hand the proverbial microphone over to her to introduce herself and say hi.
Hello, everyone. Like Tim said, my name is Ariana Lopez. I'm your active transportation coordinator here at OC Public Works. Thank you so much for coming. We're here to give you a presentation on active transportation and what we've developed thus far, but we also want to hear your questions and comments at the end. My contact information will be at the end if you have any other questions, and we also will have other resources for you if there's for you to fill out or give more feedback if you feel you need to. So with that said, I'm gonna hand it back over to Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Ariana. And I should mention off the top that, as you can see here on our main screen for the presentation, that tonight we are talking about Dana Point Harbor, Ladera Ranch, Las Flores, and Rancho Mission Viejo, but that's just a break that we're doing so that we could have 4 workshops in different locations. But truly, we welcome comments and questions about all of the unincorporated communities throughout the county. And as Ariana said, we'll have about 15+ minutes or so reserved at the end of this presentation to hear from you, answer some questions, and just have a conversation. So with that, I will get started. Quickly, if you would like to, it helps us renaming yourself. I see many people already have. Again, this is a virtual meeting. This first portion of the meeting is going to have a lot of me talking, but I want to stress that this is about dialogue and we want to hear from people. We just want to bring people up to speed. So in that spirit, please do keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. This is just because people have headphones in, and other folks typing on their keyboards or whatever it is might be distracting to others. So unmute yourself to speak, of course. We want to hear from you, but otherwise keep yourself muted. Again, we'll have time at the end, but if you have questions that come to mind, feel free to chat those into the chat option or the chat box within the Zoom framework. And then we'll just refer back to those later. Or of course, you can just ask your question during the Q&A session. So with that, we'll get into our meeting goals. So today's meeting, we have 3 core goals. We want to define what active transportation is, why it's important, and what it means in the context of Orange County's unincorporated communities and the flood control channels. Then we're going to talk about what we've been doing with the active transportation plan so far, where we're at, and where we're going, to bring everyone up to speed so we're all on a level playing field of information and understanding. And then the final thing that we're going to do before opening it up for discussion is go over the several different ways that members of the public, and not only the folks on this call, but also your extended networks, the more the merrier, can share your input and ideas with the project team. So tonight, I will provide this agenda right here, the active transportation plan overview. Then we'll talk about existing conditions, site analysis. This is the first active transportation plan for Orange County's unincorporated communities. So there's a lot of baseline information that we need to build up. Following that, I'll discuss where our team is at right now. That's our network and needs analysis. And then we'll go over community input and open it up for questions. So what is active transportation? At the end of the day, active transportation is anything that's human powered for a method of travel. So think bike lanes, sidewalks, shared use paths. We're talking about the facilities that support that type of movement. This could be for the person who's a dedicated cyclist. It could also be for the young child just learning how to walk or going for walks with the family. It's also means first last mile connections. So people who are reliant or happen to be taking public transit, being able to get to and from public transit easily without the use of a private automobile. And finally, active transportation helps us with folks that are completing daily chores and errands, as well as folks that are either currently or would like to or are interested in commuting to and from work or whatever it is that they're trying to get to. So these benefits are myriad, and they are for public health. So getting people active, improving the quality of life for people. Also neighborhood livability, making neighborhoods more attractive, better places to invest, great places to raise a family. We think of the environmental and economic benefits. So from an environmental perspective, reductions in air, water, and noise pollution, reduced CO2 emissions coming out of private automobile tailpipes. And from an economic perspective, cost-effective, just affordable, active transportation being an affordable option for those that are trying to save money or are unable to afford a private vehicle. And mobility and social equity, investing in place, making all of Orange County a great place to live and an easy place to get around on foot or bike or with some sort of mobility device, be it a wheelchair or a walker or otherwise. So our vision and goals are a little distinct from what I just went over. So that's active transportation at large. And this is what we're doing here with Orange County Public Works. So I'm going to read this statement out loud, and I also want to contextualize what these goals, these bullet points at the bottom are. So the vision from Orange County Public Works for this plan is to provide comprehensive plans, policies, programs, and projects. And I want to put a pin in that. I'm going to explain those in a moment. That result in a safer, more accessible transportation network that encourages all people traveling and residing within the county to utilize healthier and more active modes of transportation options in their day-to-day lifestyle. So what this means is more options for people throughout the county for moving however it is, for work, for play, for recreation, or anything else under the sun. The comprehensive plans, policy programs, and projects is literally what the plan is creating. So plans are high level. This is a great connection for a pedestrian pathway or a bicycle lane, whatever that might be. Those are the plans that govern development of these facilities over the next 10, 20 years or so. Policy is the supporting framework around that. So our team is producing suggested policies for Orange County Public Works that support and set goals for the establishment of active transportation infrastructure. Now, programs it's not just concrete, it's not just asphalt being poured, but we also want to suggest and focus on types of programs that could encourage active transportation. So this is everything from CHP helmet fittings, Sheriff's Department helmet fittings, going to schools and getting helmets on kids, teaching them some traffic safety, to promotional campaigns or educational campaigns, watch for cyclists, or public health campaigns, sometimes talking about just getting out and riding a bicycle or whatever it might be. Now, finally, projects that's the core, right? That's when you think of what those plans are, then the projects are the next step from the plan of what might these be and in what order. Fill a sidewalk gap here. That's the most important thing. This other sidewalk could be made nicer. That's less important. And so all of that is filtered into our consideration here. And the goals, I'll go over this quickly, but they're important. So safety means reducing collisions regardless of mode, whether or not someone's in a car, a bike, or a pedestrian. We want to make it safe for people, and we want to make it increase the comfort for those that might be hesitant to use active transportation. Connectivity and accessibility means connections to and from where people live, play, and work. So we're trying to identify the most logical connections because recognizing that the county doesn't have an endless source of funds nor time, we want to make sure that the suggestions within the plan make the most sense. Accessibility means making these facilities accessible for all. So regardless of any sort of mobility issues that one might have, we're trying to identify methods for people to be able to move freely throughout the county. Social equity, I alluded to this a moment ago. That means investing in communities that might otherwise be underinvested in, so lacking facilities, not having bicycle lanes. This also means improving active transportation options for those that are transit dependent, and enhancing safety in high collision areas. Sustainability, in addition to reduced tailpipe emissions that I mentioned, this also relates to a sustainable community is one that's thriving and that people are able to move around freely, and has a culture around it that people enjoy and people want to be there, and so that the community continue to be invested in. Preservation and identity connects right to that. It's important for us and for the county to keep this plan Orange County. We want it to match with people's expectations and the current existing built environment. And then we also want to establish an identity for Orange County Public Works. So branding campaign, opportunities for regional identity, and establishing and encouraging use. Last two, regional cooperation. Every location that we're looking at today is an island. These islands, we call them islands because they're surrounded by cities that are already incorporated. And so we want to look at each island and think about the facilities that are on either side of that facility or either side of the island to make plans that make sense from a regional perspective. And fiscal responsibility means that we're developing practical recommendations and prioritizing these projects by impact and need, which might be well suited for winning a grant or something like that. And of course, community engagement such as tonight helps us out with winning grants and getting things built. So fiscal responsibility is an important part for us too. Now, the active transportation plan process, we have an advisory committee that's comprised of Orange County Public Works staff, of course. Now this means planners and engineers, programs people, parks people, talking to a lot of folks at OCPW, and we're also coordinating with other agencies like Orange County Transportation Authority, Southern California Association of Governments, and we're also involved with the community-based organizations, nonprofits that are focused on improving walking and cycling options within Orange County. So they provide input and guidance and review, and we check in with our advisory committee regularly to get their feedback and kind of bumper rails to keep us on track. Now, our existing conditions, I mentioned, this is the first AT plan. I should stop myself. AT plan is just industry for active transportation plan. So if I say that, that means I apologize. This is the first active transportation plan for the county. So we're establishing a baseline network of existing and planned facilities. We're also looking at demographics, ridership numbers, and really trying to build out our understanding of what we're working with to begin with. Now, community engagement, such as tonight, and I'll go over what else we've done to date. This is obtaining location-specific experiential input from members of the public. This helps us address community needs. Needs and gap analysis, this is what we use to identify challenges and opportunities. So building on what we've learned in our existing conditions analysis, then we can go one step lower or deeper, I guess I should say, into identifying opportunities or potential locations that we should focus on. And then that all is built up into our network programmatic and design recommendations, which is exactly what it sounds like. There are recommendations for the network programs and project design, and we'll prepare a prioritized list for the county to consider. Timeline-wise, we started this just about a year ago in June 2020, and we've been hard at work on our existing conditions analysis and needs assessments. It's a constant throughout the process of the development of an active transportation plan. Our needs analysis, we're just about wrapping that up. We'll be sharing a draft with the county shortly, and then we'll be pivoting, turning our attention towards developing recommendations. Those recommendations are going to take us into the fall, a lot of focus time on that. And the goal is to have the plan wrapped up and before the County Board of Supervisors in about a year's time in May of 2022. So we are looking at all of these orange blobs that you can see on the map. We have 28 in total. So there are many more islands under Orange County Public Works jurisdiction, but most of them are not populated, or and so we're really looking at the ones that have people living in them. And of those 28, we have some that have been included in planning efforts by other agencies or the city that's next door to them, or they have a lot of an urban feel. You know, they're really built up. And then, so for example, think about this area over here in the Anaheim area. And then at the opposite side of the spectrum, we also have communities in the canyons. And so we have urban, rural, and suburban typologies, all under OCPW jurisdiction. And so we're working with a wide variety of contexts to develop a plan that works for each of these communities. And so it's really important for us to hear from members of these communities because we're working at such a 30,000 foot level that we want to drive down into specific context. So what does that mean? Well, here's the map bigger. And some of the communities have high ridership already, others have low ridership, and we have a variety of conditions and contexts, as I mentioned. Now, if we look at one of the more urban contexts, the Anaheim Island that I described a moment ago, and excuse me, I need to take a sip of water. Sorry about that. So many of these islands are relatively small. Dale Augusta Island over here, it's about 99 acres or so, a couple, you know, maybe 1,000 residents, whatever it is. And our job when we're looking at communities like these are to connect them to the existing communities and networks surrounding the islands. And of course, we're considering, you know, should or can we improve pedestrian conditions within the islands or bicycle facilities? But a lot of the effort with these smaller islands is plugging them into the local context. Now, if we look at the other side of the spectrum, we've got the canyon communities. And these are very small communities that appreciate the rural feel and might not want the same level of investment that other communities in more urban contexts might want. Now, at the same time, we're trying to balance those needs and those desires with the needs and desires of folks that ride recreationally through the canyons, as we know that there's a high ridership of cyclists. And we want to keep people safe. So we're looking for opportunities for improvement throughout the entire county. Now, the third portion of our planning effort, so if you think of the urban, rural, or urban, suburban, and the rural communities, the third component are the flood control channels. So Orange County Flood Control District, which is under the purview of OCPW, controls channels all throughout the county. There are excuse me, probably thousands, but many of them are very small or might be underground and aren't really important for our needs, because our needs are exploring the flood control channels that might be able to also host a shared use facility. So what's a shared use facility? Think of the Santa Ana River Trail, a flood control channel that has a maintenance road. That maintenance road is most of the time never used. And being able to build a facility for walking and biking along that maintenance road within the flood control channel allows us to make some great regional connections, as well as quick connections. But the point here is that we are filtering through all those thousands. This map, in fact, is already a cleaned up version where we're only looking at those that are 10 feet wide. And so you'll see as we progress through this that then we distill that down even more into which of those flood control channels with a 10-foot wide maintenance road that's owned by Orange County Flood Control District can be or makes the most sense to develop. So what did we do for our existing conditions analysis? Well, the first thing we did was a pretty extensive base mapping effort for each location. We looked at a lot of old plans, previous plans from various jurisdictions. We looked at the existing and previously proposed connections, and we mapped it all together. And that was our first step. And it was quite a big lift to clean all of this data and get it all together. And here we can see our existing bikeways map for the county. And the next thing that we did was exploring the connections to and through the island. So what's important here to take away is that part of what our team is considering is the surrounding typologies. So not only are we mapping the facilities, but we're also mapping what type of facilities they are. And that helps us during the planning phase to make sure that we're matching facilities so that if something is on one side of the island and it continues on through the other side of the island, that we have a matching facility throughout. We also assess the environmental exposure for each of the unincorporated communities that we were working in. We did this with a tool called Cal EnviroScreen. It's a composite index of various environmental indicators, such as exposure to particulate matter in the air, or poor public health, or noise from vehicles or from the 405, as you can see in this image. And the reason we did this is twofold. So the first is that it helps us from a prioritization standpoint to understand communities that might benefit from more investment or might have been underinvested in the past. This is just one of the many components that we consider. The other part of why it's valuable for us to do this sort of mapping and baselining is that many, if not all, but many active transportation projects in California are funded by state or federal dollars, and sometimes from nonprofit institutions as well. But regardless of the grantor institution, it's always competitive. And many of those competitive processes award points to those that are disadvantaged communities. So by mapping this, we can identify projects that might be likely or better suited to winning some competitive dollars, and helps the county kind of guide the county towards some projects that they might want to pursue sooner, because we know that they are better positioned to be awarded construction dollars. Now, we also conducted, so that was all digital, all that mapping was digital. And to back it up, recognizing that we can't walk every mile of the county, what we do in the industry are called walk audits. So we use these to kind of ground truth our understanding of what we're seeing on the maps. And so we conducted 16 in total. Some were in person, most were virtual as a result of the pandemic, which actually turned out to be quite useful. And I'll explain those in a moment. But we're assessing the existing conditions, making sure that what we have on the map matches with reality on the ground. But in addition to that, because we're speaking with members of the public, we're able to get really, really fine-grained site-specific detail that we note, we annotate, and we use later when we're developing recommendations. And then those recommendations, those notes from the audit are still saved, and we reference them when we're doing design work or building things a couple of years after that. So it's all of a whole. They're all individual components of a whole that lead to getting something built and in the ground. Now, sorry, the computer was lagging. So we here are some photos from our field visits. We conducted 5 in El Modena, Midway City, the Canyon communities, Santa Ana Heights, Santa Ana Creek. We documented challenging areas around these locations. So here you can see a pinch point in Silverado Canyon where we have cyclists riding in the roadway around a bit of a curve. So this is something that we noted, we're going to explore. Additionally, over here, this is in Midway City. This is what we call a sidewalk gap, where you can see here's a bus stop, but if you would like to be able to get over to this crossing, the sidewalk kind of peters out over here. So that's the type of stuff that we're noting in the walk audits. Now, the virtual walk audits, we hosted 11. Some communities were combined, so we were able to get more than one community in each virtual audit. And they included a primer, not as in-depth as tonight's primer or overview, but what we did with the walk audits, more importantly, after that primer on the active transportation process, was go to a predefined route. And at each of these routes, we had stops with photos, as you'll see in the next slide. And we were able to ask people what they saw, what they liked, what they don't like. Because we had the benefit of doing this virtually, we were able to fly magically through the power of the internet all around the communities. So oftentimes, when we do a walk audit on foot, it's about a half mile or a mile at most. Here we're able to cover more ground, and also folks are able to point out specific areas that they think are important, or if it wasn't on our route, folks could say, oh, just go a couple blocks over, I want to show you something I really like that could be beneficial here. Or alternatively, people could tell us, I do not feel safe at this location, jot it down, tell us why. And this all worked hand in hand with our public input map, which I'll get to in one more section. It's the strongest tool we have to understand people's nuanced experiences and suggestions. So with all that, we developed a series of profiles and base maps that are the next stage for the AT plan's development, which is our network and needs analysis. So I should back up one. So for the network and needs analysis, which our team at Alta is wrapping up our draft right now, we're studying everything under the sun. So collisions, connectivity, low stress connections to and from and throughout the island communities. We're also looking at demand. So trying to map out where is the demand, again, as a sort of guide to help us understand where the best places for investment might be. Gaps and community input. Community input is really important to us, as I've mentioned before. So we did this analysis both at the countywide level as well as for each individual island. I'm going to show a couple maps from the countywide analysis. This is, and this is what we're working on right now. So this is our live, work, play analysis. This is a composite score where we quantify and then visualize demand for walking and bicycling trips, excuse me, throughout the county. And so we're looking at an objective data-driven process. Our goal here is to kind of take our thumb off of the scale, and we'll look at census data, we'll look at land use, we'll look at travel patterns, and this helps us understand, okay, well, where are people living, where are they working, where do they play, get to transit, where do they shop? All of that information is really helpful for us because it helps us quantify the factors that generate pedestrian and bicyclist trips. And in turn, we're able to turn out an index of where there's high demand and where there's low demand for additional active transportation investment. This map here is pedestrian crashes. So also important to us from a needs perspective is identifying the areas where there's hotspots. There are plenty, unfortunately, throughout the county, and we want to bring those up and understand where the key locations are that are having collisions, because those should be places that we should look to see if there's some sort of countermeasures that we can design and implement. So this data set, this is from 2009 to 2018. The state of California, and most states for that matter, have some sort of system for collecting collision data from the CHP, the sheriffs, the local police, whoever it is. And that all goes through UC Berkeley. So UC Berkeley has a data set that we use. And we were able to identify, unfortunately, 155 collisions that involved a person walking during this 9-year study period. 15 of those were fatal, and 27 of them resulted in a severe injury. So these are real numbers and real people that unfortunately were involved in some sort of collision, but we're able to use that data to explore opportunities for making improvements. Similarly, this is bicycle crashes, and I'll flip back just so you can see the distinction between the two. Same 9 years of collision data we looked at throughout the county, and 5 of these were fatal collisions. So much lower number of fatal collisions, but there were 28 that resulted in severe injury and 131 that resulted in some sort of visible injury. So that might be a broken bone or otherwise. And again, this helps us just zero in on locations that might be important to invest in sooner rather than later. The next analysis that we conducted is called bicycle level of traffic stress. And we also conducted pedestrian level of traffic stress. The two kind of get merged together into a composite map. But what this is a index where we look at road width, vehicular speed, the presence of a sidewalk, presence of a bicycle lane. And we developed a route map that looks at the perceived level of discomfort associated with riding in or adjacent to vehicular traffic. So the theory here is that the less stressful and therefore more comfortable a bicycle facility is, the wider its appeal is to a broader segment of the population. As I mentioned at the top, of course, we want to support the folks that are strong and confident cyclists, but we also want to have facilities that work for everybody throughout the community, regardless of level of experience or dedicated cycling knowledge. This is our pedestrian level of traffic stress indicator, relatively the same, but the point being that this analysis is what we do to inform this following analysis, which is our bicycle gaps and pedestrian gaps throughout unincorporated Orange County. So what this means is that we're able to highlight networks of low stress roadways and high stress roadways. And within those connections of low and high stress, you get what effectively result into little islands where areas where people can move freely. So let's take this Rossmore example here. So in Rossmore, within the island, there are few high stress facilities. And so as a result, there is a lower demand of, there's a lower number of gaps in the low stress facilities. So one could move throughout Rossmore relatively more comfortably than they might be able to in North Tustin, for example. So a low stress connection requires both segments and intersections to accommodate low stress travel. And then what this also helps us do is zero in on areas that we might want to focus improvements on. And that could be anything under the sun. Those could be signalized intersections, high visibility crosswalks, or those crosswalks with the flashing beacons for pedestrians, low speed roadways, bridges, tunnels, bypassing high stress streets. That's why we're looking at the flood control channels. And each community profile helps us, like as we zoom in, we are looking, so this is countywide, we're also zooming into each community to better understand specifically where those stress points are. Now, finally, for the flood control channels, we took that initial data set that I showed you of all the flood control channels, filtered through to those that are owned by Orange County Flood Control District and have at least a 10-foot roadway. That's what you're seeing here. And we are in the process, this is very much a work in progress, but we're in the process of prioritizing and understanding which of those flood control channels might be best suited for investment by OCPW to turn them into something akin to the Santa Ana River Trail. Now, what are we doing to inform that? Well, one, it's got to be an open conduit. It's not going to be underground. It's got to be at least 10 foot wide. Those are the core parameters. And then we're looking at, is it close to an unincorporated community? Thinking about the communities that we're serving with OCPW. Is it at least a half-mile long so that we have a more bang for the buck, more investment dollars going further? That said, we also are looking, if a flood control channel is within a quarter mile of an existing facility, it's kind of a no-brainer that, well, we should at least look at it and consider if it makes sense to develop this as well. So we do have that built into our process. We're also looking at proximity to land use, points of interest where people are going already, access to transit, previously proposed. Is it included in Orange County Transportation Authority's planning work? And if so, perhaps there's a good case to be made for including it in this plan as well, because there's multiple jurisdictions, but of course we want a cohesive network. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go over community input, how to get involved, and then we're going to open it up for discussion. I appreciate your attention thus far. So as I mentioned, this is the first AT plan for these communities. And so we're working really hard to establish core information, just hearing from people about what they want, what they like, how often they ride a bicycle, or how often they walk to a store, whatever it might be. And we have a really wide spectrum, as you saw, of different types of people and different levels of interest and different cultures all throughout the community. So in order to hear from people, we set up a website. It's walkbikeocpw.com. I encourage you to go to it. I also encourage you, and you'll hear me say this several times, just share it with your network. It's really important to us to get as much feedback as possible. And to date, we've gotten a lot, which is really beneficial. But as we kind of turn the corner from needs analysis and start focusing on recommendations, that's when we're going to pull down all of those comments, all of that information, and start to tabulate it, collate it, and understand what we're hearing from the public to help inform the recommendation process. So on this website, we've got meeting information, survey, public input map, comments form if people don't want to speak now or want to share their thoughts later. You could always email us via this contact form. And I should also stress that the website's available in Spanish and Vietnamese, should you wish to experience it that way. So the public input map here on the left side, go to our next slide. This is a screenshot from that input map. And you can see the communities we're working in are highlighted. And we have existing and proposed facilities on this map. As you zoom in, they pop up because otherwise it's just a mess of lines. But what this tool is really powerful for us, especially like all of the time, but especially for a distributed study such as this, where we're looking all over the county. And we want to hear from everybody under the sun. So what this tool allows us to do, and you can see here, is, and there's a tutorial as well, if you go onto the website, but you can see there's the ability to say, I would like a bicycling route or connection here, or I don't feel safe walking here. And you can put specific markers down, and I'll show you right here. So let's say you live in this community and you'd like to bike to Foothill High School over here from Hughes Avenue. And we see that there's an existing network of facilities, but there's a gap here. So one's able to literally draw in that line and say, this is what I like. This is a desired bicycle route connection, and you could leave a comment if you would like to. And as we turn our attention to recommendations, as I mentioned, we'll be referencing all of these. They're very valuable. Now, what it also allows us to do is hear from multiple people. So good ideas get voted up. So we've got little likes and dislikes here. And so you can see someone suggested a connection between the Santa Ana River Trail and Miles Square Park. And you have the ability to provide comments or like or dislike. This is all just information that helps the project team now, and also the design and implementation team several years into the future, whenever that might be. The last thing I should mention about the public input map too is not to stress it too much, but it also helps demonstrate community engagement or support, which helps with grant funding and competitiveness. So it helps us really understand what we're working with. It helps when we're showcasing a potential project to a funder to say that there's community desire. This was an idea that was suggested to us by a member of the community. Got a lot of thumbs up on the public input map, and that goes a long way in these sorts of projects. As you can see, we've already gotten a lot of feedback, but we welcome more. The more the merrier. Now we also have a survey. This is helpful for us to understand where people are going, the types of improvements that matter to them, their demographics if they're willing to share it with us. This is available also in Spanish and Vietnamese in addition to English. We promoted it with mailers, social media, emails, our network, our advisory committee that I described at the top. We've got over 1,000 responses to date, and this is really valuable for us to, again, understand the community that Orange County Public Works is serving and what your preferences are. So it's a little bit different than that input map, but it's just as valuable. Okay, next steps. So we are just wrapping up our needs and gap analysis. As I mentioned, community engagement is going to continue throughout, so this should be halfway grade out. But needs and analysis is going to be wrapped by the end of the summer, and we're turning our attention to recommendations, which will carry us through fall of 2021. Then we will come back to you all, and we'll message everybody and get this on people's radar that we want to have a series of workshops about where the final draft plan is, so that we can get specific feedback about the types of recommendations that we're about to put our heads down and start coming up with. And then the goal with that is to have the plan complete by May of next year and slated for board adoption sometime in the summer of 2022. Now, with that, I want to thank everybody very much for your patience and your attention while we went over all of this. And we welcome your questions, comments, or suggestions, anything that you might want to raise, which would be useful for our project team to consider as we move into the next phase of the project. So thank you, and we'll open up the floor. Please, Dave. I guess hang on, we need to unmute you, Dave.
Unmute.
There we go.
Okay. In there? Okay, I have contact. Am I good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Listen, I really don't walk and I really don't bike. I get around on one of these things, and he's a friend of mine, and a lot of people here have ones just like him. And a lot of the trails here kind of became overwhelmed by bikes. And then next thing you know, this started to disappear. Uh-oh. So in my community and Silverado, Majeska, in that area, we all have horses. We're very horse oriented, and that's our mode of transportation. With that in mind, I don't see any questions on equestrian in our neck of the woods, but I'll certainly pose them. But one of the things I like to put forward is the enhanced crosswalk areas from Rose Canyon to the park, from the general store to the park, and the Saddle Club TCA project to the park. So if they had enhanced crossings areas, it would help not only the bicyclists, the equestrians, but also the hikers. And that would be a huge help to us.
May I interrupt for one moment? Can you,
of course,
because I'm jotting these down. So that's an enhanced crosswalk, Rose Canyon, and what were the other two locations leading to the park?
Chibuco is called Yuko Oaks, right at the general store into the park.
Mm-hmm.
And then the proposed saddle owned by TCA into the park at the mouth of the park.
Okay, thank you.
And that would even be a huge help for traffic, slowing traffic down, zinging through here. But that's my 85 cents. If you need help with equestrian or questions on equestrian, please call. Always available. Also, if you need area photographs of this aerial photographs, I can supply those as well. And thank you very much for your time and effort. I'll be commenting on a few other things later on via the internet. Thanks again.
Please do. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. And yeah, you guys up in the canyons have a really unique context from the rest of the areas that we're looking at. And we want to make sure that we're respectful of your community's needs and desires, while also of the recreational riders. And this is something that's we want to get right. So we will be looking for your comments and we'll be following up. So thank you.
Tim, this is Rich Gomez. How do you want to?
Yes, please.
Can I just go ahead?
Oh, right. Yes. Thank you, Rich.
So Rich Gomez and Patty Gomez, we're in Trabuco Canyon. Couple things along, and we'll make comments on the public input map and the survey, but along Trabuco Canyon Road that becomes Live Oak Canyon Road, a lot of bicyclists. It's a narrow road, and we're all concerned about safety of the bicycle riders as well as equestrians, like Dave mentioned. So maybe a pathway along there. There's not a lot of space, but something to be considered anyway. So separated bike lanes is what we're talking about in Trabuco Canyon specifically. The other thing that I'd like to ask is, many years ago, there was a regional map of trails that was presented to the Board of Supervisors and adopted by the county, and it's in the general plan. What are you doing to address those existing and defined regional trails that oftentimes get overwhelmed by development or extinguishing easements and things like that? Because there's a lot of connectivity in the trail system that was proposed and adopted in part of the general plan that I don't know if you're aware of, but we would certainly like to see, because it offers a great multi-use network. And again, it's in the general plan, so it is defined. So my question is, how are you addressing the existing regional plan of hiking, biking, and riding trails?
Thanks, Rich. So the first thought to your question is that this plan is focused on not trails, but bicycle and pedestrian facilities that are on roadways. And that's a jurisdictional thing. So Orange County Parks covers trails. But what we can do, and when I said earlier, we're looking at regional connectivity, is we're referencing other plans, and we're trying to make sense of where facilities might go. So if something is adopted and it's in a plan, and it might be a trail at some 5 years, 20 years, whatever it might be, those are the types of things that we're taking into account when we're saying, well, here's a good place to have a bike lane and bike lockers or whatever it might be. I'm speaking in the abstract, of course, but that's the sort of thing, excuse me, that we'll be referencing as we work into recommendations, where we zoom in a lot closer. We've kind of been working at 30,000 feet. And so, yeah, we will be referencing that, but we haven't yet.
And I think in particular, as you mentioned earlier in your remarks when you began, you want to consider those transportation kind of characteristics outside of the islands and then provide connectivity through the island. So that these are exactly those kinds of connections. Dave mentioned the crosswalks. So those are the roadway crossings where trails connect across roadways. So it's those kinds of things. So that's why we think it's maybe worthwhile considering that regional map of trails and then applying that, and certainly recognizing that Parks is responsible for that, and it's a different venue, but as it overlaps and overlays with your efforts, it would be certainly from our perspective a worthwhile element to consider.
Yeah, I appreciate the suggestion, and I think you're right, and we will do exactly that. We'll take it into consideration. Thank you.
Thanks.
I see a hand up from Doug.
Yes, thank you. I guess I'll take it down too. I first of all, I'd say thank you for hosting these things and reaching out. And I will be going to the portal. I have answered the survey, but I've lived in Orange County all my life, ridden my bike all my life. This past year, I rode 5,500 miles, about 5,400 of it in Orange County. So I'm really comfortable on the road, but I'm probably an anomaly in that case. But I guess the more I've ridden, the more I realize that when I grew up in the 60s, we had school programs that taught bicycle safety. We had school programs that taught driver safety once you're old enough to drive. And those aren't available anymore in the education system. And I don't know who, I'm looking for opportunities, or not opportunities but somebody to talk to talk about, this kind of thing. I mean, the facilities are needed, certainly, but education is needed as well to make them safe. Because most of what isn't safe is because the people that are both driving and riding haven't learned how to coexist and haven't been taught how to coexist. They don't know what the lines mean on the street. They haven't been taught that because we don't have those programs anymore in our schools. So I think I mean, and that's not for this forum, obviously, it's a different organization, but my concern is, and I ride my bike to work, I ride my bike to a train, to the train. I guess for this organization, one thing I've noticed is everybody rides to the next train station. If there's a train station in Tustin and they live in Tustin, they ride to Santa Ana. If they live in Santa Ana, they ride, or they take the train from Orange. So don't think that because they live in a particular area they go to that train station. Look for connectivity to the next station in the direction of travel, which is typically toward LA. It's a weird anomaly I've noticed in the 10 year or almost 20 years I've taken the train to LA. So I think that's a key thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting note. Thank you. Please go ahead. I want to respond to your programs thing.
For me, I like riding on the road. I prefer ones that have a good shoulder or, a marked bicycle lane. But I would like to see more trails to keep people who don't know how to ride their bikes off the roads.
Yeah, and I mean, part of what we're trying to do with the analysis of all the flood control channels is precisely that, like make areas where people who don't feel comfortable riding in the roadway can still get out and exercise or make their way through the county. And then also we're exploring protected bicycling facilities that are on street that have some sort of bollards or something like that to keep the cyclists safe, of course, but it also, I mean, I drive a car, right? Like I don't want to be involved in a collision just as much as the cyclist doesn't.
Right.
And so it's really important for us to just explore all these avenues. I do want to mention, Doug, the first thing that you described about educational programs. You're right that it's not like the core of what an AT plan does, but it is a component. So this falls under our programs section that we'll be developing a series of recommendations and types of programs that might work for driver education, cyclist education, encouragement campaigns, but it's also, we're identifying potential funding sources, because you're right, it's like, well, how are these things going to get done? And I believe it's Caltrans, I might be wrong, but there are a couple agencies that have dollars for education, like earmarked just for education, not for pouring concrete or asphalt. And so those programs are out there, those funding programs are. And so it's suggesting the type of program that could be developed, where it might be implemented, working with Caltrans, I'll just continue that example, in order to capture those dollars, bring them into Orange County and develop a program that leads to more driver and cyclist educational programs. So it's definitely on our radar, but you're right that it's not really the core of the focus.
Yeah, I guess the last point, I might have been one of those statistics in the North Tustin area. A year and a half ago, I can laugh at it now a little bit, but about 5:15 in the morning, maybe, I hit a caution sign that didn't have a sign. All it was a stand dead center of the bicycle lane. And I have to assume the city of Santa Ana approved the traffic plan. The contractor was, insanely stupid, didn't follow any standard of care or any recommendation for bicycle or pedestrian safety when placing the sign. And the actual rectangular part of the sign, diamond shaped part of the sign, was underneath it, being held down by the sign overnight. So, and I've seen more and more, it's opened my eyes to traffic plans and some of the signage that's associated with that. And what I've determined is that people, even within the city, don't realize that the bicycle lane is a lane of traffic. It needs to be, the signage has to be consistent with that. So if you could get that somehow worked into your plan. I mean, I literally got run off the road by a guy telling me I couldn't take the road at a sign that said yield to bicycles.
Well, first, Doug, I'm sorry, that's awful. I've
I know,
also
but-
had, I've had a similar experience, not too dissimilar from yours, while taking a lane when I needed to because of an obstruction in the roadway. So I get it, and we can work to address that within the plan. Again, another component that we're doing is developing a policy framework of just the types of policies that would support better, more robust active transportation investment in the county. And part of that could be improved transportation management plans, or figuring out a way to not take a bicycle lane. All of this stuff is a push and pull, of course, but your comments like taken and understood, and we'll consider it for sure when we're developing the policy component.
And I will say that the start of your virtual walk in North Tustin was at the scene of a pedestrian fatality several years ago, and that's why there's stop signs at every single intersection on La Colina.
Yeah, I believe that's why we chose that location as our starting point.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll
Thank
shut
you,
up and
Doug.
let
I
somebody else
appreciate
talk.
it. Thank you. Anyone else where we welcome your comments? Just unmute yourself and go for it. Also, and I'll switch this slide, but you're more than welcome to just unmute yourself. Here's Ariana's contact information, mine as well. You can, in addition to the website, you can also email us here, or on the website, there's a contact us information. Plenty of ways to get in touch if an idea strikes you later. I would stress, though, that the public input map is probably the most impactful way to do so, because we've got thousands of comments all over the county, and that helps us really focus when we move from unincorporated island to unincorporated island to figure out what might be done to improve the situation there. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sue Ellen Zima, and I've moved here fairly recently, about 3 months ago. And my need is probably not a major need in the city, but I live now in Heritage Point, and I'm trying to make my way through walking around. I don't drive. And so I have trouble with getting information. I don't know how to get the information that I need. I find that the ups and downs are really severe ups and downs for walking. And I'm just trying to deal with it, but maybe there are easier ways. I don't see places to sit down while you're walking on the ups and downs. I rarely, if ever, find a drinking fountain. So I just find the getting from point A to, if I can find point B, somewhat more stressful than I can handle as someone new to the community, doesn't do real well with the digital stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm just trying to find places to walk to where I can go shopping and see interesting things. So it's not a major problem for the world, but it does, when you're coming here new and you don't know what you're doing, it's, I think, unnecessarily confusing. So let me put it that way.
Well, first, Sue Ellen, I'm sorry that you've had these challenges. That's no fun. And one of the things that is what we're exploring, it's not what the plan will do, but it's what the plan is considering, is called wayfinding, which is precisely what it sounds like. You know, it's signage oriented for pedestrians about how to get from point A to point B, or where the points of interest are. Oftentimes, those routes that are suggested on wayfinding signage are the ones that aren't going up and down hills or aren't going some circuitous route. And we know that there's room for improvements in that regard, and that's what we're exploring within the plan. And then in terms of amenities such as benches, drinking fountains, that's kind of in the same camp as bicycle racks, things like that. These are the types of improvements that we can suggest and plan for. And then it all comes down to, when something's truly being built, designers and engineers look at who owns what, where it can go, the size of the sidewalk and the size of a bench, all that sort of stuff. And so hearing from you and hearing that that's a need is the type of information that just winds its way through the long planning process. And then sooner or later, some engineer is hearing your comment and looking if there's a place to put a bench or otherwise. So
Well, how
we'll
do I
look
make
for
this
that.
contact?
Yeah. So if there are specific locations, and I know you said you're not too savvy with the digital stuff, I'm happy to talk with you, and we can mark up the public input map for you
Great.
over the phone. That's something I'm more than happy to do. You can contact us. Do you have email? I mean, clearly, if we're
Yes, I have email. I'm not
So-
that far behind.
Okay, so Sue Ellen, if you email me at walkbikeocpw@altaplanning.com.
Down here, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. If you email that, I'll set up a time with you and I'll take your comments and I'll put them into the public input map for you, so that way it's preserved for both our team's use as well as like 7 years down the line, that kind of thing.
And would it help me get from point A to point B? Who do I ask? How do I get from here to there? I haven't figured that out yet. I'm trying to figure out, I don't know where to go, who to ask for directions, and how do I contact where?
I'm not quite sure. There might be a county service, Ariana, if you're familiar with one that could connect you with that sort of information. But to be completely honest, I'm not sure what resource you could lean on for that.
Yeah, we can look into see what resources are available. I'll do some research on that when you speak with Tim on pointing
Okay.
data points of interest. I'll see what I can do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, can I just make a quick comment?
Yes, of course.
So I live in Ladera Ranch, and there've been a number of community concerns about the e-bikes on the walking. Like, we have a ton of walking trails and bike trails in Ladera, but there's been a huge growth in e-bikes, and a lot of, like, I went to a community meeting for a civic council and there were like 70 people there, and the main topic was the e-bikes. So I just think when planning, it's really important to consider that is going to continue to grow, and that a lot of people who are like pedestrians definitely don't want to share with the e-bikes, and maybe even people who are regular bike riding. Like, the e-bikes are very fast and make people uncomfortable. So I don't know,
Yeah.
just thinking about the e-bikes and how that's going to impact the use of these trails.
Yeah, Jessica, so again, my personal experience, I too have been buzzed closely in South County by e-bikes whizzing by on the trails. It's totally unsettling. To be honest, it's new territory for all of us, and we're trying to figure out what the law is, what can be done, what the design improvements might be. And also, as you mentioned, you went to a community meeting and there's 70 people talking about it. Just last night when we did another one of these workshops, they were brought up. We're trying to get our arms around e-bikes and understand. It's also, what could we do from a legal perspective, which again, I'm not a lawyer, nor is anyone at my agency. But it's something that we're truly trying to address. It's just a really tough nut to crack because it's so new. They just like popped up over the past 2 years, maybe 3 years, at least in the numbers that we see now. So it's on our radar. This is something that we're considering, or we're exploring different options we can with the policy framework that I described about. Maybe it's a speed limit or something like that. But a speed limit on a trail seems like something that might not be that enforced. So we're exploring what we might be able to do. But I guess I should just say I empathize with you. I know it's challenging, and we're trying to address it.
Yeah, and like, I have one, but I also have a regular bike, and I walk too. And I think it goes back to what the other person was saying about education, people not understanding the rules, like where they're supposed to be. It's like a multifaceted problem, but I just wanted to say e-bikes are a problem.
Yeah, the more people that we hear, like, this is valuable too, because all this information we're sharing with the County Board of Supervisors, with the supervisor districts. So the more voices in that chorus, the stronger it is that, like, this is something that needs to be addressed. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're a little over time. I'm happy to keep chatting. This has been really productive and valuable. I appreciate your input. But if we're all done here on this group, I just want to give one last plug for everybody here, of course, to visit the website, walkbikeocpw.com. But please share the public input map and the survey widely with your network. We're going to be referencing those really soon. So the sooner that and the more input that we can get, the better informed our design teams can be when producing recommendations. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate your attention. I hope you have a good night. Take care, Dave. Be well, everybody.